It is the day we've been waiting for. Humanity crosses a new frontier in space exploration. The Artemis II mission will make a history-making lunar flyby in just a few hours, marking the furthest that humans have ever traveled into the cosmos. The 4-person crew just received their wake-up call, and here's a bit of that moment for you. The Orion capsule will complete its lunar flyby later tonight. It will be the first time humans will see parts of the far side of the moon. The crew will take pictures and document observations as they slingshot around the moon, temporarily losing communication with mission control as they do that. Now, earlier today, mission specialist Christina Cook described what she and her crewmates saw as they head closer to the moon.
Sure enough, we are now falling to the moon rather than rising away from Earth. It is an amazing milestone. Also, earlier we had the Earth out as a crescent out the side hatch and the moon out window 3, and definitely by far the moon is bigger than the Earth.
And the CBC's Mark Carcassole joins us now for our coverage of this historic moment. Okay, so of course, this is the highly anticipated day of this Artemis II mission when they will be doing the slingshot around the moon. What more can we expect?
Well, you heard Christina Cook mention there, the mission specialist, that they are now falling toward the moon rather than pulling away from Earth. And that's because yesterday they went into the lunar sphere of influence, which means they're literally being pulled in now by the moon's gravitational pull. For those keeping a record, by the way, there are a lot of people online keeping playlists of the songs that they're using.
Yes.
That one was called Good Morning by Mandisa.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with it, but there you have it. They also had a nice message from Jim Lovell, an Apollo 8 astronaut, cheering them on like everyone else on Earth. You also mentioned mission specialist Christina Cook talking about the crescent Earth that she saw. Well, on NASA's Twitter page, they posted a photo of that. This is their last view of Earth before they pulled into the lunar sphere. And as she mentioned, it's a crescent Earth. The Earth from where they are has those same sort of lighting differences that the moon would have from where we're standing. So let's go into the day ahead now, the big day as we've been calling it. This is what they play for, and this is what they will be doing today. We've got the whole run through here. The important bits around 2:45 today, that's when the observation period really begins. That's when they can see both the near and far sides of the moon. The crew will be dividing into pairs to make various observations for about 55 to 85 minutes at a time. Around 6:47 p.m., these are Eastern time, by the way, Mission Control expects them to temporarily lose communication with Earth, as Arti mentioned. That should last for about 40 minutes or so. I want to pause there to go to Steve McLean. He's a former Canadian astronaut. He talks about what they will be doing while they've lost communication with the Earth. There's a lot of work they have to do in those 40 minutes.
It's a serious test, and during those 41 minutes, the crew is pretty busy. They're making sure that it maintains attitude, maintains trajectory, maintains their timing. They have to make sure that the data is being buffered so that when they get to the other side 41 minutes later, it can be downlinked. And then the transition out is just as important as the vehicle acquire the ground data again.
Also, during that period where they lose communication, they will break the distance record from Earth, originally held by the crew of Apollo 13. They will be the furthest humans have ever been from our planet. Mission Control reacquires communication with them a little before 7:30 p.m. And by 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time, the observation period is over. They will relay images back to NASA, and then they will debrief on it sometime tomorrow.
Okay, so this is, of course, the most important day, so to speak, in terms of the observations and the mission itself, but there's still a few more days to go. So what happens next?
Well, tomorrow there is the debrief with NASA. They want to do that while their memories are sort of fresh in their heads. And then after that, it's really a lighter day for the crew. They will, during the second half of the day, will fire an engine up for one of 3 trajectory return burns on their way back. The rest of the day, they're largely off duty. It'll give them a chance to rest before they get back to some of their final tasks on those last few days headed back to Earth. Those days largely made up of various experiments, tests, and demonstrations.
Thanks for this, Mark. That is the CBC's Mark Carcassole. All right, so for more on this, let's turn to someone with a vast knowledge of all things space. Neil deGrasse Tyson is an astrophysicist at the American Museum of Natural History. He's also the author of the upcoming book, Take Me to Your Leader. Thank you so much for making the time for us today, Neil. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, and it's exciting that we have a Canadian up there. rounding the moon.
It most
on its way
certainly
back,
is.
so.
Canadian audiences are absolutely captured by that. It is extraordinary to see, the Canadian Space Agency play a role in this, and to see Canadian Jeremy Hansen up there in space for the first time as well. So, of course, something that Canadians are watching, but really, it's something that has captured the eyes of people around the world as well. What is just so significant about this Artemis II mission?
Well, a couple of factors. First, it's not simply the first Canadian to leave low Earth orbit. It is the first non-American to leave low Earth orbit. So it's an even bigger thing, an even bigger fact than simply being the first from a given country. So I just want to assert that fact. And everybody on there has no precedent in this exercise. It's the first woman. There's the first person whose skin color is not white. We have the oldest person going, and of course, the first non-American to take this journey. Also, they happen to be going to the moon during lunar apogee. There's perigee when moon is closest in its orbit. Apogee is when the moon is farthest, because the moon's orbit is not a perfect circle. And so if you're going to do a loop around the moon, when it's at its farthest point in its orbit, chances are you're going to set a distance record. And not only that, their figure 8 pattern is a big loop around the backside of the moon. So that's how you get the distance record being set. Personally, I think a more interesting record was the record set by the lone occupant of the command module when the other 2 astronauts went down to the moon, and they went alone around the moon. And so on the other side of the moon, they have the record for being the farthest human from any other human that any human has ever been. So that, to me, that's another sort of interesting distance record. The loneliest person there ever was, that person who went around the backside of the moon. But it's about time we're back to the moon. That's my general sentiment here.
And that is my next question. It has been decades since there have been other lunar missions. In 1969, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, when we're talking about a lunar landing. What has taken so long? Because the technology was there, and one would expect was continuing to be worked on as well.
Yeah, what nobody is talking about, either because they don't know it or they don't want to reference it or whatever is the reason, what no one is talking about is why we went to the moon in the first place. There's a lot of cleansing of our memory in that era, as though, because we're explorers and we're Americans and this is what we do and it's in the human DNA. Part the curtains, we've got to beat the godless Russians to the moon because they're a threat to us geopolitically, and we got to show the world that we're better. Because they beat us at everything else. They had the first satellite, the first non-human animal, Laika, the first human, the first woman, the first dark-skinned person. Remember, Cuba was on their side at the time. So they were beating us at everything. And Kennedy says, what can we do to beat them in the space race? And let us declare we go to the moon. We got to the moon, looked over our shoulder, no Ruskies were there. Okay. And so it was like, wait, they're not coming? Okay, we're done here. And so the program ended. That's why it ended. It wasn't from lack of interest. It was lack of geopolitical forcing. So now we're going back to the moon after 50 years. Is it because, it just feels like a nice thing to do? Oh, wait a minute. Back in the 20-teens, when the Artemis program was launched, China wants to go to the moon and put a taikonaut on the moon. That's their word for what we call astronaut. We better go back to the moon. So there's a geopolitical force operating that is underpinning all of this. And not enough people are admitting that. I get it, because you want to just think we're just all explorers. But that's, from my read of the history of geopolitics, that's the real driver here.
So when we're looking at those drivers and the work that has gone into achieving this next step, I'm wondering how important it is for space exploration and watching as all of the players, of course, around the world are likely wanting to achieve that same goal, that same mission.
Yeah, so I have my own opinions here. So one of them is it'd be cool if the solar system became our backyard. And it's no longer a special thing to go to the moon or Mars or beyond. It's just the next mission that someone is going to engage either in the commerce that could happen. You realize how many natural resources are just sitting in asteroids that are otherwise doing nothing or putting our security at risk because you don't want asteroids hitting us? You know, if the dinosaurs had a space program, they'd still be here because they would have deflected that asteroid. So asteroids have extraordinary repositories of resources. There's 24/7 energy from the sun. So space, if it becomes our backyard, it can expand our think of wars that have unfolded on Earth because of limited access to limited resources. How many wars you can add up that have been responsible for that? Whereas the space, because there's basically unlimited resources there, that it will take away an entire category of warfare. Yes, we'll still fight over religion and skin color and you know, who you sleep with or whatever, but I'd like to believe that space can be an important force in introducing a level of peace among nations that it hasn't experienced before.
And you know, it's interesting because the pilot on this mission, Glover, we also heard sort of a similar message from him in the sense of saying it would be nice if there was this coming together of humanity, because looking at Earth from that far, it is, you know, one just large piece. And certainly that is a perspective that many of us do not have, and a message that perhaps doesn't resonate in the same way that it would if we were in space looking at the planet Earth in the same way that Glover is as well. Now, I do want to finally ask you, we've been talking broad strokes in regards to this exploration, but I want to pinpoint down on today itself and the importance of today's flyby, what will be discovered, and also losing contact for 40 minutes. You know, how important or significant that is as they do this discovery around the moon.
Well, it's not a surprise. As they go behind the moon, the communication channels are blocked by the moon back to Earth. So, okay. So if you're getting data, you can't keep transmitting it. You'll buffer it until you come around the backside when Earth comes back in view. But a couple of other interesting things. So Earth goes out of view, and shortly after that, the sun goes out of view. That's kind of fun. So you get a little lunar eclipse, except the moon is so much bigger than the sun from that point of view. It's not as striking as a solar eclipse here on Earth, but they'll also experience that. They'll be seeing parts of the backside of the moon that are illuminated by the sun. There's no such thing as the dark side of the moon. Whoever started that, maybe it was Pink Floyd. I don't know. It's never a dark side of the moon. All sides of the moon get sunlight over a month. And so you go around the backside, they will see a partially lit backside of the moon, get good images of that, good data. And by the way, all of this is to get ready for ultimately when we land. We're all targeting, not we, but other nations, India, Russia, are targeting the South Pole as a destination where we might pitch tent, because the South Pole has these pockets deep inside of craters where water has landed from previous impacts of comets, and that water's been there for billions of years. And so it's a water trap, we call it. It's so cold it'll never evaporate. The sunlight is literally where the sun don't shine. And if you have water, you don't have to bring water. You can use water for rocket fuel, separating the hydrogen and oxygen. So that's the target destination in this next wave of lunar exploration.
Neil, it has been a real pleasure to have this conversation with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Excellent. Thank you. And congratulations to all of you.
Thank you. That is Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is an astrophysicist at the American Museum of Natural History. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.